Welcome to the last of today's Primperfect talks here at the SL11B Community Celebration Auditorium. This evening, because it is now this evening for even early evening for Californians, I'm talking to Jo Yardley of 1920s Berlin about her project and her plans, and also the news that is gripping everyone in Second Life. I guess we're going to talk about that too.
Yes.
So, welcome, Jo.
Thank you. Hello.
So, let's start off by talking a bit about the Berlin project. Now, some people may think that you are actually a Berliner yourself, but you're Dutch, aren't you?
Yes, I live in Amsterdam, the capital of the Netherlands. Not very German at all, even though I have some German family, but I've only been in Berlin once in real life, unfortunately.
It's the last, when I went, it was a building site.
It always, I think it's been a building site since 1945.
And basically they're kind of building the Potsdamer Square again when I was there. But you actually settled, so you've only been there once, and you settled to kind of tie your Second Life experience around Berlin and a particular period in Berlin as well. What drew you to that?
Well, when I came to Second Life, when I realized the potential it has, I immediately thought I want to do something historical because, I'm history mad, especially the early 20th century. So I wanted to do some sort of historical, a club, maybe even a sim one day. And I started thinking about what I would do, and I also started thinking about what people would find interesting. So not just something I would like, but also a place that wouldn't be empty all the time. And started talking to people. What do you think about this idea, this idea, and this theme? Well, 1920s Berlin immediately caught people's attention, and it is one of those places and times in history that if I could, I would visit myself. So, not knowing that it would be my life for the next 5 years, I decided to, let's try that. Because 1920s Amsterdam, that would just not be
Doesn't have
that
quite the
popular.
same
No,
resonance,
it
sadly,
wasn't
does
as
it?
no, it wasn't that exciting.
Um, there are alternatives. I mean, you could have presumably have gone for 1920s Paris, which is also equally fascinating, but and perhaps a little better known even with the moderns and all of that.
Yeah, maybe, but Berlin at the time was much more at the forefront of all these things, art, music, freedom. Berlin in the 1920s really was the center of the world, especially when it comes to culture. It was much more exciting than Paris at that time. Paris had a golden age in the 1930s, perhaps. It sort of switched. But if you Berlin was the place to be, at least in the 1920s.
And it's fascinating because it had such economic devastation at the beginning of the decade,
Yeah,
with the hyperinflation.
it came out of a really bad place. But that's that often happens when something really bad has just happened, or when there is a dramatic change in your culture. People tend to want to try something else. They want to say, forget about the past. We want to party. We want to live. We want something new and interesting. And that's when art changes, and fashion, and the way people think about morals and ideas. People went a little bit nuts, and um, you know, as soon as things started getting a little bit better again by the mid 1920s, it became a golden era for Germany.
But just for a few very fleeting years.
Yeah,
But
that makes them even more well, golden in our collective memory, because we know what happened afterwards. Those that short time of absolute freedom and tolerance and partying and wild behavior becomes even more interesting and even more exciting.
and then, of course, the following decade saw the rise of the Nazi Party and the end of it all. All those freedoms and repressions were expressions were lost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a club in our sim that's based on a real life club, where everything was allowed, and it's sort of, to me, it's a symbol of Berlin in the 1920s. It was tolerant for cross dressers, for homosexuals. People could dance there, and it wasn't hidden away. It was completely out in the open, unlike in any other country in the world at that time. And in 1933, pretty much the day the Nazis took over, that club was closed and turned into a Nazi headquarters. I mean, so that building to me is a little bit like Berlin, the entire city. It's so dramatic changing, and so visual and painful.
Now, you actually have a point where there was the start, because each year you repeat the same year, don't you?
Yeah, we decided pretty early on that the most interesting and typical year for the theme of our sim was 1929.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, what are we going to do? I mean, if we continue, if we decide to go to for 1930, eventually we're going to have to add more and more Nazis. And that may not be the kind of sim people want to visit, or people visit it for all the wrong reasons. And of course, also, in Second Life, that you'll get into a lot of trouble if you want to show swastikas and things like that. That the rules are not very clear on it, but I've been told by Lindens that if you use swastikas, you're not allowed to anyway. So you'd have to start hiding and camouflaging things, and so you can't do it properly anyway. And it's not the story I want to tell anyway, because everybody knows about Nazi Germany. That's the story we all know. And you know, I want to show people the Germany, the Berlin before the Nazis took over. I want to show people what they destroyed, what it was like, this whole culture and different world.
The whole Weimar
Yeah.
Republic period, yeah. I'm interested by the fact you've decided just to focus on 1 year and say not do a 3 year cycle or something like that. Was this because when you set it up, you weren't sure it was going to last beyond 1 year?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't really think that far ahead, but I also thought, because I want the sim to be so authentic, as realistic as possible. Um, that would mean that every year I change. If every time we change the date, the year, I'd have to go and change parts of the sim,
Right.
because on some walls we have graffiti and advertisement from 1929, and if we would go to 1928, I'd have to remove them.
Yeah.
Because we have a few graffiti things on the walls that we add after special events. But if I have to do that a lot all the time to lots of places in the sim, I'm already running out of time.
Yeah. The um, the year in question saw the start of politics. You actually have a riot, I
Hmm.
believe, every
Yeah,
year.
yeah, that's up until the middle of 19 or the beginning of 1929. The Nazis were not allowed, especially Hitler was not allowed to have meetings and speeches in public. And that sort of calmed things down a little bit. There was, of course, a lot of political tension all over the place, but it sort of kept things as they were. But by the beginning of 1929, he was allowed to organize these events again and have his speeches, and pretty soon tensions were everywhere. They were going up, and the Nazis started parading and marching again, and then the communists were told that they were not allowed to, and they sort of insisted, and that caused this massive riot that killed about 30 people in one day. And we try and recreate that every year, and several other smaller events as well, simply because they're such a big part of 1929 history, and because it is a very exciting experience for us in Second Life to be part of a real historical event.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun.
Now, one of the things that you're very strict about people dressing the part.
Yeah, I want to give visitors as much as a time travel experience as Second Life allows me to. And that means that I try to build everything as realistic and historical as possible. And we ask all the visitors, to wear 1920s clothes. We're not extremely strict. I mean, I'm not going to tell someone to go away because their dress is 1930s, for instance. But if the general look comes close to what it could have looked like in the 1920s, you're more than welcome. And if we can't offer you a freebie, for instance, we don't have hair for everyone, and we don't have shoes for everyone. So we accept it if people don't get that right. But I don't know, I don't want to be rude, but it really just ruins the atmosphere if there's 20, 30 people in 1920s clothes dancing and having fun, and suddenly someone in a latex miniskirt and bunny ears joins up. It's
Right.
just, it's sort of, and it ruins the pictures as well.
I liked you. I like the line from Edward there. Jedi's go home.
Yeah. Well, we know now and then we have relaxed rules day where we say, okay, for 24 hours, the rules are off and everyone is welcome, and bring your modern friends, or bring friends to our furries, or have other reasons why they don't want to change their avatar, and they can come and play with us and they can run around all day. But we don't do that too often because, well, it's all about immersion.
So you've taken very care with the buildings, and one of the things I like about Berlin is you've tried to bring different social areas together. So there's quite a large proportion of, say, the residential bills that are more working class bills than the usual middle class stuff you see
Yeah,
in Second Life.
yeah, absolutely. And I have two reasons for that. The main reason being that, again, I want to go for authenticity and realism, and it's simply a fact of history that, well, I don't know exactly the percentages, but the majority of people in Berlin were working class, and most people did not live in fantastic Art Deco mansions like we see in The Great Gatsby and in all the Hollywood dramas. People experienced poverty, and in an extreme way that we can't even imagine today. So I want to give modern people who are pretty much all spoiled. I want to give them the experience of living in a one-room apartment that is tiny. And the second reason is that I personally find those people, which I call the real people, much more interesting than movie stars and politicians and the people who lived in nice houses with servants. No, to me, the little people are the ones that were the pillars of society that made sure everything kept working.
Now, you've said a very interesting word there that I want to come back to you on. You referred to the little people, and that's another aspect of Berlin, isn't it?
Yes.
You very much promote realistic heights.
Yeah. It's a bit of a. It started out as something really personal. I'm a little bit obsessed with things having to be logical. And when I read my first prim and realized that it was 50 by 50 centimeters, I thought, oh, okay, I've got my skill. I know what to keep an eye on when I'm building. Because I didn't like making things up. If I want to build a house or door or the Brandenburg Gate, I wanted to use the real measurements and just copy them so that I could put my avatar next to it and see how big it is in real life. So
Yeah.
pretty soon, pretty much from day one, I decided to use prim scale to build everything. And back then that was really weird. I think we were one of the first Sims that, well, probably not, but we were one of the few Sims that did that. And we had, and I am 6 foot tall. My avatar is 6 foot tall, and as soon as you make your own avatar a prim scale size, and you have the luxury of owning a sim, you decide to make it all fit you.
Yes.
And everyone else can, if you don't like it, tough.
I must admit that my avatar has shrunk several inches for usual purposes during the last couple of
It
years.
is becoming a lot more common. A lot more people are realizing that sometimes we are very tall. And for the future, it's actually quite important because I've tried the Oculus Rift, and when you are actually inside Second Life, when you are your avatar, suddenly, as scale and everything having to make sense is so much more important. Because when you have an avatar and you walk into a really big house, you don't really notice it because the camera is flying high above you and you're tall yourself. But when you use an Oculus Rift and you walk into a bar and you realize that the ceiling is as high as in a church, it doesn't feel right. It does. You don't. It's not nice. And when you go to a prim scale sim, suddenly it all makes much more sense. So it's becoming more and more important.
How many prim scale sims are there now?
I have no idea. I have to confess that I don't get out much.
I think you must be pretty busy. You have regular events in Berlin, don't you?
We do. We have daily events even, and I host quite a few of those. And if I'm not hosting events, I'm pretty much chained to the sink by my tenants, because I have to mesh the houses that we have. And because, we want to keep up, we have to improve things. So there's always something to do.
I bet. But as well as that, you've taken on another regular weekly task because you're co-presenting the Drax Files, I believe.
Yep. Yes, I am. I'm having a little bit of a summer break at the moment, so that's nice.
Is the program off the air or is it just you off the air?
It's just me. Well, we stopped recording a show. We just do interviews now. So Drax has done loads of interviews with very interesting people, and he just broadcasts those directly without him and me chatting about it.
Well, that is, although, interesting to get the take on current events, which we'll come to in a minute. Of course, Drax has been able to cover a lot of things, and the show has given more flexibility because the World Makers must be quite a time commitment thing.
Yes, absolutely. But luckily, Drax is quite obsessed with Second Life, and showing the other side of Second Life. And so am I. And you have to be if you are willing to invest so much time and effort into something. So that's so important to us.
Now, what are your plans for the near future? I remember hearing talk about a second sim with a different historical simulation.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've got quite a list of Sims that I want to build. There's at least a dozen of them, and they're all, uh, you know, 20th century, first half European plans. But of course, I've spent the last 5 years working on Berlin, and it's still not quite finished. So I'm not going to not going to, write any dates down yet. But I hope to start on the 1940s London project in the near future.
Which year are you thinking of going for there?
At the moment I'm thinking about 1940, the Blitz, because again there is that's not a subject in England. Everyone knows about it, but internationally, people don't seem to realize that that was pretty much the battle that won the war. And I also like to show the world, this time when England was pretty much on its own, or Great Britain, I have to say, on its own against Nazi Germany, because Europe was being overrun, and America was still not taking part in the war. So there was this little island being attacked by planes almost daily, being bombed into submission and not surrendering. So it was, it's I want to show that side, but again, just like with Berlin, I wanted to make it as realistic as possible. So it's not going to be this tally ho and everything's fine and dandy and look at us being brave. I'm going to show the dark side as well, the black market, the looting, and I want to give people who live there, the tenants, the horrible experience of losing your house, which is, again, it's not a smart thing to do as a tenant. As a landlord, that's bombing your own tenants out of their house is probably not a good idea. But it's it's I want to give people historical experiences.
And someone has just said, "Ooh, we get to loot." Ignore the fact that you're going to get bombed out of your houses. There will be looting opportunities, yes.
Yes, looters will be shot though. And in Berlin, as well in Berlin as well as in London, we have permadeath. So if you get killed, you're banned for it until the year ends. So that's that suddenly makes it a bit scarier.
Yes. That's interesting. I didn't realise that. So if you happen to die in Berlin, that's it. You're out till the end of the year and the year
Yeah,
comes back to the beginning.
generally, yes, of course. If it's an accident, if someone gets shot by a griefer, I'm not going to say, right, you're out for a year. But if you are killed in as part of a role play of a story that's going on, and everyone sees it, then you're out. I mean, the same thing happens if you commit a crime in 1920s Berlin and everyone sees it, and you're actually caught by the police and you are sent to jail. You can get banned for 2, 3, maybe 4 months, and you can't get back until you are released from jail, which is quite a lot of fun for everyone else.
But not so much fun for the jailee.
Well, we got one guy jailed for a couple of months, and apparently he spent all those months in some sort of fetish jail in Second Life somewhere, and he had quite a good time, I hear.
Right.
I didn't ask any details.
So it had actually, yeah, that doesn't sound terribly historically
No,
accurate,
he
but who
decided to
knows?
spend his time in jail anyway, so that's okay.
Yeah, there are probably very few boring jails in Second Life.
Probably not, no.
So, um, you have this plan for London. So, are you going to base it, say, around St Paul's?
I don't know. I think St. Paul's has to be on the horizon somewhere, even, as just as an image. Not sure if I'm going to rebuild the whole building.
But the
I think,
whole wreathed in
yeah,
flames, yeah, and surviving
exactly.
the
But
Blitz.
I'm not quite sure if I'm going to rebuild a real part of London, or if I'm just going to sort of make it up a little bit. But the setup is going to be almost the same as Berlin, where you have a station where you arrive, a main street where the shops and the theaters are, and a working class area and a posh area. So that is sort of the setup. And how I'm going to do that in detail, I don't know yet. But I can already imagine sitting in the pub in 1940s London, and suddenly the sirens go off and scripted planes fly over in droves and searchlights pop on, and it's going to be terrifying. I can't wait.
I hope you will build the underground, at least, a bit of the underground.
Yes, absolutely.
So people can go and
not
sleep
only
there.
because I like underground trains, but that's where where quite a few people spend the night during air raids. Yes,
And
absolutely.
yes, the
I just read in
blackout.
chat that there are blackouts. There will be blackouts, and there will be people walking around saying, "Oi, out that light!" And if you if you don't close your curtains in the evening, you get a fine.
And there'll be people who'll have to go and be fire wardens on the top of roofs and watch for bombs.
Yes, absolutely. Even if even if they don't want to, it's going to be interesting.
I think it's going to be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to it. I know you want to finish Berlin first, but I'm kind of bouncing up and down.
Yeah, I want to get rid of the prims as soon as I can. As soon as I get rid of all the prims in Berlin, I know that it's most of the work is done, and then I can start looking further.
Right. So you're making all these plans and you're looking forward to the future. And this sounds like a second life future for the foreseeable future. Now, a lot of people at the moment are panicking and saying, well, they're not going to do anything in Second Life because Second Life is going to close and it's all impossible. And oh my God, we're doomed, we're doomed, we're doomed.
Run for the hills, panic.
Yes, the sky is falling. You clearly don't share this belief.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I would be lying if I said that I wasn't worried, because I am, because everything I know and everything I've built and everything I understand is in Second Life. But there's also a lot of things wrong with Second Life, and I hope that Second Life 2 will be a lot better, a lot more interesting, will have a lot of new challenges. And I look forward to that, because maybe I'll get more prims, maybe I'll get lesser tier, maybe I get more space, maybe I can do more, and that's what makes it interesting for me. The idea of having to completely rebuild Berlin is going to give me a heart attack. But I doubt that I'm going to stay in Second Life while this shiny new world with more options is, on the other side of the canal. To put it in an Amsterdam sort of way.
Yes, that sounds very Amsterdam. So, but if, on the other hand, Second Life, I mean, would you see a point in continuing to at least keep Berlin in Second Life, even as
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, do you see a point in keeping Berlin going for as long as possible in Second Life, even while you're building the new one?
Yeah. No, I'm going to keep Berlin is going to stay in Second Life for as long as there are enough people living there to pay for the gas and the electricity, to keep the lights on.
To keep the lights on, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to pay for it out of my own pocket while everyone's gone and everyone's already moved to Second Life 2 or 1940s London or whatever. As long as Second Life exists, 1920s Berlin is not going anywhere. As long as I can afford it.
And you see at least the first incarnation of Second Life of 1940s London as being in Second Life.
Possibly, I don't know. I mean, the beta testing is going to start next year for Second Life 2. I hope that I'm going to be one of the people who gets to test it. So by next year, I'm going to have a little bit of an idea of how awesome Second Life 2 is going to be. And if I by then already know that Second Life 2 is going to offer me so many more options and freedom and possibilities, then I'm probably going to save 1940 London for Second Life 2.
Right. Well, that would certainly be, I think, a major temptation for people to cross.
Yeah, I hope so. I like to think that the 1920s Berlin community is very strong, and we're all friends who hate and love each other both at the same time. And I like to think that as a community, we will one day decide, boys and girls, let's all pack our bags at the same time and move to Second Life to 1920s Berlin there. But we'll have to see.
Well, I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions for Joe at this point.
I'll light another cigarette. I wish we knew the name already.
They probably haven't decided that yet. I mean,
no, it is so early. Better Life, that's a good one. Because Ebba keeps saying it's going to be Second Life, but better. He says better a lot.
Better Life, yes.
I think they're going to try and get away from the Second Life name as far as possible. Is there someone who hasn't heard it yet? Really? Really?
Has anyone not heard about this project?
Second Life 2, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Well, just in case someone has missed all of that, Ebba Aldberg, the CEO of Second Life, has said during a meeting in World that Linden Lab is working on a new virtual world, and it's going to be bigger and better and more fun. And they're going to start the beta testing in a year, and they are planning to release it in 2016, although that will probably not quite happen. And Second Life 1, the original one, is going to keep going as it is, with improvements. They haven't stopped yet for at least another couple of years, and probably as long as it pays the bills. A bit like Berlin, really.
One thing that's really worth thinking about with all this is that other attempts have been made to build a better Second Life. Blue Mars did it, Cloud Party did it. I was talking to Jessica Lyon earlier today. That's a talk that you can actually see up on the web, and I think I can give you the address where you can see that talk. Bear with me a sec.
I think that if Linden Lab says that the tier is going to be less in Second Life 2, people are suddenly going to forget all the issues they have with Second Life 2.
I've heard, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, that they're actually looking to make Second Life 2 be more based around paying taxes on sales and things like that.
He did say, Ebba did say that they wanted to move away from tier for land, and that he's going to try something else. So it might be interesting.
Okay, so hang on. This is the talk with. This is a talk this morning with Jessica Lyon. If people are interested, that was Na's talk this morning. Yes, prim tax redux. People who remember way back to that time, there was a riot against that.
I think that was a bit before my time.
So Yeah, Echo, if they actually made the tax 5%, then they would probably get the same amount as they're getting in tier from
Yeah,
content
I would
creators.
personally, I would rather pay a little extra for things
Mm.
than for land and for building, because if you tax things, you sort of I don't like the idea of taxing creativity, because
Mm.
creativity to me is the cornerstone of Second Life.
Mm.
And if someone wants to make money and has to, pay a little bit of money to get money, then I like the idea. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we'll have to see.
A sales
Well, we
tax.
know we have texture tax already.
Um, you could say that actually there already is a tax on anything you sell at the marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe maybe they're going to try and do something like that.
And make that their official revenue stream.
Yeah, maybe, because I think they are making a lot of money on that. Perhaps not as much as with land, but I think it's a huge revenue.
And maybe they could do that. Of course, they tried that once, but and they tried to clear the freebies off the marketplace, and there was huge opposition to that. People like a very talented creator, Ordinal Malaprop. Joe, you probably knew Ordinal. Actually, basically destroyed all her bills and left over that.
Yeah,
She was so
yeah,
angry because
that's
she'd been giving
dramatic.
things out for free. I sort of sat it out and
Yeah,
it went away, as a lot of bad Lenten decisions do if you sit it out.
yeah, it is. It is. It is. It always happens. No matter what you do, there's going to be a bunch of people that are really unhappy about it. And that is of course the problem. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. There's always going to be people, especially in Second Life, who are really upset, no matter what you do.
Yes, the capacity for being upset in Second Life is utterly formidable.
Yeah, we're really good at it.
I think we saw that this morning as well in the meeting
Yeah,
that we
and
had there.
I understand that people are upset, but it's I think that it is just too early to get worried. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be worried, but I'm saying, wait a little, because we know so little about what's really going on. I mean, people are almost making it up as they go along. They say, oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. It's all speculation, because I think we know about 5 or 6 facts about what's going to happen. And yeah, wait until you know what the problem is before you get excited about it. If tomorrow we hear that they're not going to use mesh in Second Life 2, but they're going to force us all to start using sculptures again, then I'm going to be upset. But I want to be sure about the facts before I start screaming. And that's why I'm keeping a track of everything that Ebba says on the forums and on Twitter, and trying to keep a little bit of a list of what do we actually know.
Right.
And it's not that much. No, we're just assuming that we can't take anything with us. While what Ebba said, they're going to try and let us take as much with us as they can allow us to take with us, without breaking the new system. And that's that sounds already a lot more interesting than or more appealing than people who are saying we can't take anything with us, we're going to throw everything away. So it's you have to get back to the source, what has actually been said, before you get upset.
I was actually going to ask you, when you mentioned Evie, it brought it to my mind. Your beer garden had a rather unexpected visitor earlier, I believe.
Yes, Ebba decided to join to make his first visit to SL11B to our little happy hour in 1920s Berlin exhibit, which was surprising and a lot of fun. And I only sent him 50,000 messages. No, I didn't. But I did tweet him about happy hour, and I said, come on over, because he's been to Berlin before, and we know how much he likes our disgusting lukewarm beer. So I thought, let's invite him. And he did. He showed up, which was a lot of fun, because and I'm a little bit disappointed about that. I have to say that he was pretty much the second Linden I've seen in all my time in SL11B, and I'm not here all the time, of course, but with this new Linden Lab rule of Lindens being allowed to go outside again, and in world and be seen, I was secretly hoping that there would have been lots of Linden all over the place. But I'm glad that Ebbe showed up, and that I think he spent almost an hour with us. Not, sometimes away from his keyboard, I have to say that, which is very brave.
Yes. It was good to see him. Yes, it would be nice to see more Lindens wandering around, but it's a start. And
Yeah,
he also came in human form and talked.
Yes, yeah.
I still remember the very weird appearance of Rodvik at SL. I think it was SL8B.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember him walking around Second Life. He visited Berlin as well, which was an interesting experience. But Ebbe seems to be much more comfortable.
Yes, that's a good word for it.
He's even more comfortable than me, because I would never go away from my keyboard if there are 1920s Berlin people around. They're insane. It's just dangerous.
Yes.
They'll pick your pockets and all.
That's experience. He hasn't had that yet. I saw someone invited him. I think it was you who invited him to become a tenant.
Yeah, I did say to him, if he wants a room or somewhere in Berlin, I'm sure we can find him a dirty little attic somewhere. Because he has to have that experience of being a tenant and paying rent, so he can see all the things that make that difficult in Second Life.
Right.
Not to mention the loud neighbors.
Do you have lots of loud neighbors?
Well, our tenants pretty much live on top of each other, so even if they whisper, you can hear what they're saying.
Right. Yes, there is very little privacy, especially if you cam out, and yeah.
Well, there isn't really much privacy in Second Life to begin with, but in Berlin we pushed that to the extreme. Not only do our tenants live very close to each other, but we also we are such a strong little community that we keep an eye on each other even if we can't hear each other. It's part of Berlin is really a typical neighborhood from a big city where everybody knows everybody, and if you decide to go and do something weird or stupid in the street, the next morning all your neighbors know about it.
Now, we've had a question which I'd like to pass on, which is, Frau Yardley, what do you think are some subjects what are some of the subjects you're looking forward to discussing with Drax in the fall?
Well, Second Life 2, then some Second Life 2, then the Oculus Rift, and then Second Life 2. We're going to be talking a lot about the future of Second Life 2. And well, we pretty much try and keep up with the news and all the things that happen. So who knows what's going to happen then. But yeah, definitely that, and we're going to keep an eye on virtual reality, the headsets and the omnidirectional threat mails, and all the technology, and see where it's going, because it's such an exciting time. It's changing all the I mean, just yesterday someone sent me a cardboard virtual reality headset that you can make yourself. It's going to cost you less than $10. I mean, it's amazing, and no, we can't say what's going to happen next year. Can't even say what's going to happen in 2-3 weeks. It's fantastic.
I must say, I find technology is going so much to tablets and smartphones that the idea of locking yourself in with a very heavy headgear seems, in a way, counterintuitive.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, as soon as you try it,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you actually try it, you know that this is the future. You know that this is what everyone is going to want. Not a big heavy black thing on your face. Of course not. We're going to wait till it develops and becomes lighter and wireless and all that sort of thing. But when I've put the headset on and walked through 1920 Berlin, I'm not up too proud to say that I had tears in my eyes when for the first time I saw the shadow of a Zeppelin going, over the street, and I looked up and there was a Zeppelin flying over my head. That's something that I've wanted to see in real life since I was like 3 years old, and suddenly there it was. It was fantastic, and of course, the first Oculus Head Rift, it's development kit. That means it's not ready yet. The second development kit is coming out, and it's a lot better, and it also already has a lot less motion sickness. I didn't have any motion sickness at all. The next headset, the one that's going to go public, probably won't have that effect either, unless do the standing up in a roller coaster demo, which I did, which was fun as well. No, wait and see. You get to try the very first public one, and then I think you'll be convinced.
Maybe it'll go through as much of an evolution as the phone has. I mean, remember back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, we were all half bricking it. We had these big half brick phones. You put it in your handbag, you could barely lift your handbag off the ground, and that was your mobile phone. And
Yeah,
you had to let
absolutely.
it die, all the power drain out before you charged it again, otherwise you'd start screwing with the battery.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, give it a year.
Mm-hmm.
Wait how it goes, because I can really see every household having these things, because we are only thinking about it for virtual worlds. Some people in the business are only thinking about VR being used for gaming.
Mm.
But it's going to be used for exercising, for shopping. It's going to be used for everything. For watching television, watching a movie. I've watched a movie with the Oculus, and we watch movies in 1920s Berlin as well, and I can imagine being inside a cinema watching a movie together with my friends who are living all over the world,
Mm.
watching it in the same cinema, watching it on the same screen, and pretending that we're throwing popcorn at each other. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. And we haven't even thought about half the possibilities that this new technology is going to offer us.
Gabby says she's watching the Excite store blow up. Yeah.
Well, apparently I've been told, between you and me, that there is sex in Second Life. I mean, I wouldn't know, of course, but apparently people will be wanting to use Oculus Rift for that sort of thing as well. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. I generally just run away when that sort of thing happens in Second Life.
Sailing, horse riding, these activities can be bettered by, are just some of the activities that can be bettered by the use of Oculus Rift, and we won't talk about the others.
Well, I tried to explain to my mother why she might be interested in Oculus Rift, and um, I told her she could go jogging
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the world while
Mm.
staying at home.
Mm.
And she suddenly thought, that's interesting. Or, I could build a living room and I could recreate the avatars of my family living in Australia and the avatar of my mother, and I could put them all in the same room, and it would be a little bit like they're actually visiting each other. She can't go to Australia every year, so that would be nice. There's so many possibilities. We haven't seen anything yet.
Right. Well,
As the song goes, we ain't seen nothing yet.
Yes. Well, on that note, and aware that a Chinese ballet is about to begin on the next sim down, and I've seen a little of this, and it's really well worth watching if you've got the time. I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'm going to say thank you very much for Joe Yardley for joining in this talk with me. We have 3 talks again tomorrow, which I hope you'll enjoy. We have a designer talk with Reverend Roscoe and Kira Furniture, and they are forming together a new design project called Casa, which is going to be very interesting. They're going to be talking to me at 2 p.m. At 4 p.m. you will be able to hear how the University of Western Australia is supporting art across the world through its wonderful support of art in Second Life. And the final talk will be the Doctor Who community.
Ooh.
And that's always a very popular talk.
We have a Dalek in our sim. Not but he is a Dalek in real life, but not in Second Life. He does the voices for Doctor Who.
I see. Yes, I can understand he wouldn't want to go to the Doctor Who Sims. It would be just, taking his work home with him.
Probably.
Goes to Berlin instead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jo, thank you. It's always fun talking to you. And
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you want to hear Jo talking again to me and to Elric, she's going to be on next World's Designing World show, which will be broadcast in a couple of weeks. We may actually have an open audience as we film, because, well, we'll see.